We're staying on top of breaking news as the plans for federal executions continue to evolve. The federal government set 3 executions for this week here in Terre Haute. The first is set for today. We've been following legal motions back and forth. Only one side of protesters showed up to protest today. These protesters were against federal execution.
We believe strongly that the death penalty really should be abolished.
Good afternoon to you. I'm Susan Dinkel. Rondrell Moore is on assignment. It's Monday, July 13th. We continue our live team coverage for you of federal executions resuming in Terre Haute. Rondrell Moore will walk us through the latest developments at the prison. Heather Good is a media witness to the execution. We'll hear from her. And Sarah Lehman is following the demonstrators. We start with Rondrell Moore. He's been at the federal prison since earlier this afternoon. He explains what he's seen today, and he talks with Heather Good, who's been inside waiting to be a media witness.
Right, Susie, as you mentioned, that execution for Daniel Lee was supposed to happen, scheduled originally for 4 o'clock this afternoon, but you'd mentioned there'd been some legal issues and some back and forth. Some of those cases involved COVID-19 concerns. Another issue was the process of lethal injection and whether it was humane for inmates. So that has caused this delay. As we told you before, each time there's a federal execution, there is a media witness that is allowed to come in and view it. And that's where we come in with News 10's Heather Good. And Heather just came from the federal penitentiary, and you were a media witness. So tell me, what do you know? What's the latest right now?
Right. Well, I would say about a half hour ago, a public information officer with the Bureau of Prisons did give us a statement for those of us that were in the media center room there. There's about 8 journalists there who have been approved, as I have, to witness the execution today. She told us essentially that the BOP is ready to proceed with this execution as soon as they get the go-ahead to do that, and that this litigation is resolved.
Well, and Heather, you know, this isn't your everyday story. You know, you're watching somebody potentially draw his last breath. What's been the mood in there for both you and also the other people? Yeah,
absolutely. Well, it definitely is something that you don't do every day. Really, there's just anticipation. A lot of us were just sitting there waiting, watching the clock. We'd see, you know, get closer to 4 o'clock, nothing would happen. We'd get past 4 o'clock, nothing new. And then now actually being allowed to leave the media center and being told that we'll be allowed to come back. We'll have to go through the screening and processing all over again, but they're at least giving us that break that we don't have to sit in that room until we get an answer.
Well, that has to be at least some relief. You talked about the processing. You know, with COVID-19, a lot of people are concerned about safety. What were some of the things that you went through to make sure that you and others, as well as the inmates and the staff members, were safe?
Absolutely. So when we first got to the media center, you are checked in, your name is checked off, and you are given a temperature check. You're also given a mask, and you are to wear that mask the entire time. For the folks who are specifically media witnesses, we were taken into another room where we were given a briefing, and shortly after that, around 2:45, we were driven. Again, the media center is just down the road from us in the training facility down the road from the federal prison. So we were divided into 2 vans, 4 journalists per van, and we were bussed into the U.S. Penitentiary. That is where we were able to go inside. We saw officers that were in full protective equipment, so they had masks on, they had gloves on, they had gowns on, they had shields on. We went inside, and then that is when we went through the process that's very similar to like if you're traveling by air, metal detectors, that sort of thing. While we were doing that, which I thought was interesting, they actually went out to the vans that we were bussed over in, cleaned those vans, and swap those vans out. So we drove in different vans going back to the media center where we have been now, you know, just waiting.
Well, a very intricate process, and Heather, I know that you're kind of on loan right now, so you could be called back at any moment, so we're going to let you get back to it, but you're going to be following this all evening long.
Absolutely. We will be on Twitter and Facebook, and we'll have all those updates as soon as we get them.
All right, good work. Heather Good reporting for you today, and again, she is going to have those updates the moment that they come in. But right now, we want to take a step back and look at the case of Daniel Lee and kind of what led up to this situation. In 1999, a jury found him guilty of killing a family of 3 in Arkansas. They were a federal firearms licensee and his family. An 8-year-old girl was among the victims. The DOJ says Lee and another man robbed and shot them in 1996. Then they covered their heads with plastic bags, weighed them down with rocks, and threw them into a body of water. The family of the victims, the prosecutor, and the judge who tried the Lee case all say Lee shouldn't be executed. That's because the other man in the case received a life sentence instead of a death sentence.
This situation has only compounded our grief. And so continuing to say that this is something done in our family's name is just not authentic and true.
Yes, Daniel Lee damaged my life. But I can't believe taking his life is going to change any of that.
Now, this is one part, obviously the biggest part of the federal execution, the inmates, but another part has been the potential of demonstrators coming to Terre Haute even in the middle of a pandemic. Now we need to go live to News 10's Sarah Lehman, who is where the demonstrators were sanctioned to set. Let's see where the demonstration situation stands now.
Stand by. Rondrell, COVID-19 is a big concern for a lot of people here during these executions. That was the reason for the first appeal. But capital punishment is a hot button topic across the country. That's why we were surprised to not see anyone from either side of the issue here at the prison. News 10's Dominic Miranda and I plan to find demonstrators here in roped off areas at the prison. But as you can see behind me, these areas have been empty all day long. Demonstrators were supposed to meet at two specific locations in Terre Haute to be bussed here. Those were demonstrators for and against the execution. The officers were waiting to help people get through processing, but no one showed up. However, there was a group that met near the prison this morning. These folks were against the death penalty. Representatives of Death Penalty Action were there locally. That includes the Terre Haute Death Penalty Resistance Group.
We're making it more dangerous for everybody concerned by doing it in the middle of this pandemic.
Again, these judges are realizing that there are legitimate issues here, and there's no reason but for politics to rush through these.
Now, a group met in a separate event not long ago away from the prison. News 10's Bree Shackelford shows us what happened.
The Death Penalty Resistance Group met near Spring Hill and US 41 this afternoon. They were encouraging protesters to stay away from the protest area marked off by the prison. As Sarah mentioned, they raised concerns about COVID-19. The Terre Haute Death Penalty Resistance is a group of people who want capital punishment to end. This group believes that all life is sacred and the death penalty is unjust. They said they wanted to bring visibility to the issue by being at a busy intersection. I spoke with a sister of the Sisters of Providence today about it. She said the main reason for the protest was because there was another option the government could take, a more peaceful option.
We're very much aware that these crimes are terrible. So the possibility of a life sentence without parole is certainly one of those things.
They also felt prison officials made it hard for people to take part by setting early deadlines for people to show up. Back to you.
Thank you very much, Bree. Now, local law enforcement are also working today to make sure the area stays safe. You can see several Indiana State Police vehicles in this vehicle. They were out today helping to block roads and control crowds. Local police worked together for weeks to form their plans. And of course, this is an ever-evolving situation. News 10's Heather Good just told you she's going to be here potentially for the duration of the night. We will be here as well, giving you the very latest. For now, reporting live in Terre Haute, Rondrell Moore. Let's send it back to Susie in the studio.
We're going to check back in with Rondrell again a little bit later on in this newscast. You can also find complete coverage of what's happened today on the News 10 app and at WTHI-TV.com.